Welcome to the family. If you enjoy powerful stories and wild adventures, subscribe now, hit like and share with someone who will love it too. Marcus wiped grease from his hands as the emergency beacon pierced through the silence of his salvage ship. Lucky break. 3 years of scrapping derelict vessels in the outer rim had taught him to recognize distress signals, but this one was different. The frequency was alien, pulsing with harmonics that made his teeth ache. Could be worth something, he muttered, adjusting course toward the source. The asteroid field of Kepler 442 was a graveyard of ships from a dozen species, most picked, cleaned by scavengers like himself. But occasionally something valuable turned up. The wreckage that appeared on his sensors defied classification. The ship was massive, easily dwarfing his modest salvage vessel, its hull a flowing amalgamation of what looked like living metal and crystalline structures. Purple energy still coursed through visible conduits, suggesting the vessel retained power despite catastrophic damage to its port side. Marcus docked with practiced efficiency, sealing his ship to an intact airlock. His environmental suit's readings showed the atmosphere was breathable but rich in exotic particles. As he stepped aboard, bioluminescent panels flickered to life, casting an ethereal glow through corridors that seemed grown rather than built. The ship's interior was a masterpiece of organic architecture. Walls curved like the inside of massive shells, floors had a slight give that suggested living material, and the air hummed with an energy that made his skin tingle. Advance didn't begin to describe what he was seeing. He followed the ship's main corridor, guided by emergency lighting that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. The further he ventured, the more he realized this wasn't just a ship. It was a vessel designed for royalty. Intricate carvings covered every surface, depicting scenes of star systems and creatures he couldn't identify. The bridge was a circular chamber dominated by a throne-like command chair wrought from what appeared to be living crystal. But it wasn't. The chair that stopped Marcus in his tracks. It was the figure lying motionless beside it. She was humanoid, but clearly not human. Her skin held a faint luminescence, shifting between pale blue and silver, depending on the angle of light. Hair that looked like spun starlight fell past her shoulders, and even unconscious, she possessed an otherworldly beauty that made his breath catch. Most striking were the crystalline formations that crowned her forehead, not a decoration, but clearly part of her physiology. Marcus checked his scanner. She was alive but barely. Her species' physiology was unknown to his medical database, but her breathing was labored and her luminescence was fading. Whatever had damaged the ship had injured her severely. "Hey," he said softly, kneeling beside her. "Can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open, eyes like captured nebulae swirling with colors that had no names. When she saw him, something shifted in her expression. Recognition? Relief? She tried to speak, but only managed a whisper in a language of musical tones. Marcus activated his universal translator, an old but reliable piece of tech. After a moment, her words became clear. The ritual," she whispered. "It has chosen you." "What ritual?" "Look, you're hurt. Let me help you." She struggled to sit up, her luminescence brightening slightly. "You came. Despite the barriers, despite the distance, you came when I called. I just picked up your distress signal." "No." Her voice grew stronger, filled with certainty that unnerved him. "The calling only reaches those who are compatible. You are here because you were meant to be here." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. Compatible with what? She looked at him with those impossible eyes, and he felt something fundamental shift in the universe around them. "With me. You are my chosen. My mate." The words hung in the air like a challenge to reality itself. Marcus stared at the alien woman, certain his translator had malfunctioned. "You're what now?" "My mate." She struggled to her feet, moving with regal grace despite her injuries. "I am Queen Lyra of the Vex High Empire. The ritual of calling has bound us across the stars." Marcus stood slowly, his mind reeling. "Lady, I think you hit your head harder than you realized. I'm just a salvage mechanic from Earth Colony 7. I fix broken ships and sell spare parts." Queen Lyra approached him, her movements fluid despite her obvious pain. As she drew closer, Marcus felt that strange tingling sensation intensify. The air between them seemed to shimmer with invisible energy. "Your species calls it destiny," she said, raising a luminescent hand toward his face. "We call it the Song of Souls. It brought you here, through all the vastness of space, to answer my call." I answered a distress beacon, not some mystical. Marcus stopped as her fingertips brushed his cheek. The moment of contact sent electricity racing through his nervous system. For an instant, he could swear he heard something, a melody just beyond the range of hearing, hauntingly beautiful and achingly familiar. Lyra's eyes widened. "How felt it? The song. Only a true mate would—" Alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. The bioluminescent panels flashed red, and through the transparent sections of the bridge, Marcus saw sleek predatory ships emerging from the asteroid field. "Hunters," Lyra breathed, her luminescence dimming with fear. "They followed my ship here." "Hunters? What kind of hunters?" "The Krex Syndicate. They've been pursuing me for 3 cycles, ever since," she faltered, pain crossing her features. Marcus moved to the bridge's tactical display, his mechanics instincts kicking in. The readouts were alien but intuitive. 7 ships approaching fast, weapons charging. "Since what?" "Since I refused. Their trade alliance. They want to strip mine the life worlds of my empire. When I said no, they declared war." Lyra joined him at the display. "They killed my royal guard, damaged my ship. I barely escaped." The lead hunter ship hailed them. A harsh reptilian voice filled the bridge. "Surrender the Vexhai Queen, human. This does not concern your primitive species." Marcus keyed the comm system. "This is a salvage vessel operating under colonial treaty rights. You're in violation of— You have 10 of your minutes to transfer the Queen, or we will take her from your corpse." The channel closed. Marcus turned to find Lyra staring at him with something like amazement. "You would defend me? You do not even know me. You're hurt, you're being hunted, and you're on my ship," Marcus said simply. "That makes it my problem. The Krex have weapons that could vaporize your vessel in seconds." Marcus grinned, feeling more alive than he had in years. "Then we better not let them use those weapons." He moved to the helm controls. "Can this ship still fly? The main drives are damaged, but—" Lyra's hands danced over crystalline control surfaces that responded to her touch like living things. "Emergency power only. We cannot outrun them." "Don't need to outrun them." Marcus studied the tactical display, his mind racing through possibilities. "Just need to outsmart them." "How well do you know this asteroid field?" "Every rock, every gravitational anomaly. This is the edge of my territory." "Good. Because I've got an idea that's either brilliant or completely insane." Lyra looked at him with those nebula-colored eyes, and Marcus saw something in them he hadn't expected. Trust. "In my experience," she said, "the two are often the same thing." Marcus laughed despite their desperate situation. Maybe she was right. About destiny. Maybe the universe had brought them together for a reason. Or maybe he was just a fool about to get himself killed for a beautiful alien queen. Either way, he was committed now. "Hold on, Your Majesty," he said, firing the ship's engines. "Time to show these hunters what a human mechanic can do." The ship lurched forward into the asteroid field, hunter vessels in pursuit, and Marcus felt the Song of Souls humming in his bones. The asteroid field became a 3-dimensional maze of death as Marcus pushed the damaged Vexhai ship through gaps that seemed impossibly narrow. Behind them, the Krex hunters spread out in pursuit formation, their sleek vessels cutting through space with predatory grace. "They're gaining," Lyra observed, her hands flowing over the crystalline controls. Even injured and exhausted, she moved, with the unconscious elegance of someone born to command. "My ship was never designed for this kind of maneuvering." "No, but it was designed by engineers who understood physics," Marcus replied, banking sharply around a tumbling chunk of rock the size of a city block. "Tell me about your artificial gravity system." "Our inertial compensators use quantum field manipulation to—" She stopped. "You cannot possibly understand Vexhai technology," Marcus grinned, pulling the ship into a spiraling climb that should have been impossible given their power limitations. "I've been reverse engineering alien tech since I was 12. Your people use gravitational flow dynamics, right? Channel the ship's movement through crystalline matrices." Lyra stared at him with something approaching awe. That knowledge is restricted to our master engineers." "Well, this master engineer is about to do something your people probably never tried." Marcus spotted what he was looking for, a massive asteroid with a hollow core, probably mined out decades ago. "Can you reroute emergency power to the gravitational systems?" "Yes, but why would—" Understanding dawned in her nebula eyes. "You want to use our own gravity generation as a weapon, not a weapon. A slingshot." The first hunter ship rounded the asteroid behind them, plasma cannons charging. Marcus waited until the last possible second, then killed their forward thrust and reversed the gravitational field. The Vex-High ship snapped backward like a rubber band, passing within meters of the hunter's hull, before momentum carried them into the hollow asteroid. The hunter, caught completely off guard, slammed into the rocky wall at full speed. The explosion lit up the asteroid field like a newborn star. "Incredible," Lyra whispered. "You turned our own ship into a gravity trap. 1 down, 6 to go." Marcus checked their power levels, critically low. "But we can't keep this up much longer." The remaining hunters had learned caution, approaching in a coordinated pattern that left no escape routes. Their leader's voice crackled over the comm. "Impressive, human, but your ship is dying and you have nowhere to run." Marcus studied the tactical display, then looked at Lyra. She was growing paler, her luminescence fading as fatigue took its toll. Whatever injuries she'd sustained were getting worse. "There is one option," she said quietly, "but it would require you to trust me completely." "I'm listening." "The Song of Souls, the bond between mates, it allows sharing of life force, of consciousness. If we complete the ritual temporarily, I could heal enough to fight." Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. "Complete the ritual, as in—" "Nothing so dramatic," Lyra said, though her own skin showed traces of blue luminescence that might have been a blush. "A touch of minds, a joining of essence. But it would bind us more completely. The connection cannot be easily severed." The hunters were closing in, weapons charging. Marcus could see no other options. "What do I need to do?" Lyra stepped closer, her eyes swirling with galaxies. "Place your hand over my heart. Open your mind to mine." Marcus reached out, his palm settling over the place where her heartbeat pulsed, with faint light beneath her skin. The moment of contact was like touching a live wire carrying the power of stars. The universe exploded. Marcus found himself experiencing existence through Lyra's senses, tasting starlight, feeling the gravitational songs of planets, seeing the mathematical beauty underlying all creation. And through their link, he sensed her experiencing his memories, the loneliness of a salvage runner's life, the joy he found in fixing broken things, the deep longing for something more than endless, empty space. Power flowed between them, human. Determination mixing with Vex-High grace. Lyra's injuries began to heal, her luminescence blazing brighter than before. And Marcus felt something fundamental change within himself, as if circuits he'd never known existed were suddenly coming online. "Now," Lyra said, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated in his bones. "Let us show them why humans and Vex-High were meant to be allies." Her hands moved over the ship's controls with renewed strength, and Marcus felt the vessel respond like a living thing. Together they were more than the sum of their parts. The hunt was about to become a dance. The bond between Marcus and Lyra transformed the dying ship into something magnificent. Through their shared consciousness, Marcus felt the vessel as Lyra did, not as mere machinery but as a living extension of will and purpose. Every system hummed with renewed vitality, powered not just by crystal matrices but by the harmony of two souls working in perfect synchronization. "I can feel your thoughts," Marcus said wonderingly as they moved as one being toward the ship's weapon systems. "And I yours," Lyra replied. "Your species' gift for improvisation, your mechanical intuition. I have never experienced anything like it." The Krex hunters had formed a battlesphere around them, confident in their numerical advantage. Their leader's voice echoed through the comm, touching display, but it changes nothing. Surrender now and the human dies quickly. Marcus and Lyra exchanged a look that needed no words. Through their bond, they shared a moment of perfect understanding. Counteroffer, Marcus transmitted back. Withdraw now, and we'll let some of you live. The hunter commander's laughter was like grinding metal. Arrogant mammals, begin the bombardment. 7 ships opened fire simultaneously, converging plasma streams that should have vaporized the Vex-High vessel instantly. Instead, the beams struck, a shimmering barrier of crystalline energy that wrapped around the ship like protective scales. Impossible, the commander snarled. Their shields were depleted. Not shields, Lyra said softly, her hands weaving patterns over the control crystals. Song. Through their bond, Marcus understood. The Vex-High didn't simply build their technology, they sang it into existence, their consciousness harmonizing with the mathematical frequencies that governed matter and energy. And now, linked with his human adaptability and mechanical insight, Lyra could do things no single Vex-High had ever achieved. The ship moved like liquid light, flowing between plasma bolts with impossible grace. Marcus felt every maneuver in his bones. His human spatial reasoning merged with Lyra's three-dimensional thinking. They were no longer pilot and passenger. They were a single entity with 2 bodies, dancing through the void. Take us through the debris field, Marcus suggested through their link. The wreckage is too dense. No ship could. Trust me. Lyra smiled, and Marcus felt her absolute faith wash through their connection. The ship dove toward the graveyard of vessels that littered this section of the asteroid field, hulks from a dozen species, twisted metal and alien composites, creating a maze of sharp edges and unstable masses. The hunters followed, but their larger ships struggled with the tight quarters. Marcus guided them deeper into the mechanical labyrinth, using his salvager's knowledge of how wrecked ships behaved in zero gravity. There, he whispered, spotting their target. The old battlecruiser at grid 77. Lyra saw it through his eyes, a massive human dreadnought from the colonial wars, its hull split, open like a flower of destruction. But Marcus saw something else. The ship's main reactor still intact, still containing enough antimatter to power a small city, or level everything within 50 kilometers. You want to detonate it, Lyra realized, but we would be caught in the explosion. Not if we time it right. Your people's phase shift technology, can this ship move between dimensions temporarily? For perhaps 30 seconds with our current power levels. That's all we need. They streaked toward the derelict battlecruiser, 6 hunter ships in close pursuit. At the last possible moment, Marcus fired a single plasma bolt at the reactor core while Lyra initiated the phase shift sequence. Reality blurred. For an eternal instant, Marcus existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously, experiencing the universe as pure mathematics and light. Then the explosion hit, a sphere of annihilation that consumed the derelict ship, 3 hunter vessels, and half the surrounding debris field. They materialized in normal space, just as the shockwave passed through their previous location. 4 hunters left, Marcus observed, checking their tactical display. And they have learned caution, Lyra added. The remaining Krex ships had pulled back, regrouping at a safe distance. Their commander's voice had lost its mocking tone. What are you? Marcus and Lyra spoke in unison, their voices harmonizing in ways that made the ship's crystals ring like bells. We are what happens when 2 species choose to stand together instead of apart. This isn't over, the commander snarled. The Syndicate has fleets. The Syndicate has fleets of individuals, Lyra interrupted. We have something stronger. Tell your masters that the Vex-High Empire has found new allies. Tell them that humanity and the children of stars now sing the same song, Marcus. Felt power building in the ship's systems, not weapons, but something far more significant. Through their bond, he understood that Lyra was preparing to send a message that would reach across the galaxy, carried on frequencies only Vex-High could hear. Tell them, Marcus added, grinning fiercely, that this mechanic is off the market. The remaining hunters fled into hyperspace, leaving the unlikely pair alone among the asteroids. But their journey was just beginning. In the aftermath of battle, silence settled over the asteroid field like a blanket of stars. Marcus and Lyra remained connected through their soul bond, sharing breath and heartbeat as the adrenaline of combat faded into something deeper, an awareness of fundamental change. "They will return," Lyra said quietly, her luminescence dimmed with exhaustion. "The Krex Syndicate does not forgive humiliation. Let them come." Marcus was surprised by the steel in his own voice. Through their bond, he felt the vast network of Lyra's empire, billions of Vexhai across hundreds of worlds, all connected by the same harmonic frequencies that now linked him to their queen. "They'll find more than one human waiting for them." Lyra turned to study him with those nebula eyes. "You understand what accepting this bond means? You cannot return to your old life. A queen's mate becomes part of something larger than himself." Marcus looked around the bridge, at the living crystal displays, the walls that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, the technology that responded to thought and emotion rather than mere mechanical input. Through their connection, he felt the weight of responsibility that came with rulership, but also the incredible potential for something unprecedented in galactic history. "I was never meant for a small life," he said. "Maybe that's why the song found me." A new presence touched the edge of their shared consciousness, gentle but unmistakably powerful. The ship's communication crystals began to glow with incoming messages. "My people," Lyra breathed. They felt the bond form across space. The main display filled with faces, dozens of Vexhai nobles and advisors, their expressions ranging from amazement to concern. At their center stood a figure who radiated authority even through the quantum transmission, an elderly Vexhai male whose crystalline crown formations were shot through with veins of silver. "Father," Lyra said, inclining her head formally. "Daughter." The Emperor's voice carried harmonics that spoke of vast age and wisdom. "The Song of Souls has awakened the entire Empire. You have bound yourself to a human." "To Marcus of Earth Colony 7, Lyra replied proudly. "He saved my life and proved himself in battle against the Krex. The song chose him, Father. I merely listened." The Emperor's gaze fixed on Marcus with uncomfortable intensity. Through the bond, Marcus felt Lyra's nervousness. This was not just a meeting between in-laws, but a moment that would determine the future of two species. "Step forward, human." Marcus approached the display, conscious that billions of beings were watching through connections he barely understood. "Your Majesty, you bonded with my daughter without understanding our ways, our culture, our responsibilities. What makes you worthy of a throne that has been held by my bloodline for 10,000 cycles?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Marcus felt temptation to list his accomplishments, to justify himself through deeds and skills. Instead, he found himself speaking a deeper truth. "I'm not worthy. No one could be worthy of Lyra or of the trust your people are being asked to place in me. But worthiness isn't the point." He straightened, meeting the Emperor's gaze directly. "I'm here because when she needed help, I didn't hesitate. Because when faced with the choice between safety and doing what's right, I chose right. And because, somehow impossibly, the universe decided that a salvage mechanic from the outer rim might have something to offer the children of stars." Silence stretched across the quantum link. Then, slowly, the Emperor smiled. "The song does not choose the worthy," he said. "It chooses the necessary, and perhaps what our empire needs most is someone who sees us not as gods or myths, but as people worth protecting." Relief flooded through Marcus and Lyra's bond, but the Emperor wasn't finished. "However, accepting a human as prince consort will not be easy for all our citizens. Some will see it as dilution of our pure bloodlines. Others will question whether your species possesses the longevity to be suitable mates." The Emperor's expression grew serious. "There will be trials, Marcus of Earth Colony 7, political, physical, and spiritual. Are you prepared for such challenges?" Marcus looked at Lyra, drawing strength from their connection. "I've been fixing impossible problems my whole life. Your Majesty, I'm not about to stop now." "Good, then return to the capital with all speed. The Syndicate's attack changes everything. We must prepare for war, and that preparation must include integrating human tactical thinking into our strategies. The transmission began to fade, but the Emperor's final words carried clearly. "Welcome to the family, Prince Marcus. Try not to break anything too important." As the channel closed, Marcus found himself laughing despite everything. "Prince Marcus? That's going to take some getting used to." "The formal title is Prince Consort of the Stellar Throne," Lyra said with amusement, "but in private, you will always be simply my Marcus, the mechanic who answered when I called." Their ship began its journey toward the heart of the Vexhai Empire, carrying with it the seeds of an alliance that would reshape the galaxy. Behind them, the asteroid field sparkled with the debris of their first victory. Ahead lay challenges neither could imagine. The Vexhai capital world of Lumina defied every concept Marcus had of planetary engineering. As their ship approached, through layers of orbital cities that sparkled like captured starlight, he felt his mind struggling to process the scope of what he was seeing. 3 billion inhabitants in the orbital rings alone, Lyra explained through their bond, her thoughts tinged with pride. And the planet below houses another 20 billion, all living in harmony with the world's natural crystal formations. The planet itself looked like a jewel suspended in space, vast continents covered in crystalline forests that caught and refracted sunlight into rainbow cascades. Cities grew organically from the landscape, their spires reaching toward the heavens, like frozen music made manifest. "How old is this civilization?" Marcus asked, overwhelmed. "Our recorded history spans 50,000 years. The Song of Souls has guided us since we first learned to listen to the harmony between matter and consciousness." Their ship descended, through atmospheric layers that shimmered with controlled auroras, finally settling onto a landing platform that seemed to be grown from a single massive crystal. As they disembarked, Marcus found himself facing a reception committee that included some of the most beautiful and alien beings he had ever encountered. The Vexhai nobles were works of living art, each one unique in their crystalline formations, their skin tones ranging from pale silver to deep blue-violet, their movements flowing like dancers even in the simple act of walking, and all of them were staring at him with expressions he couldn't quite read. "Prince Consort Marcus," said a tall female whose crown formations resembled delicate coral. "I am High Advisor Nara. We have prepared quarters for you in the Royal District." "Thank you," Marcus replied, then felt through his bond with Lyra that there were undercurrents to this greeting he wasn't catching. As they walked through corridors that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, Lyra whispered in his ear, "They are testing you. Everything, from how you walk to how you respond to formal address, is being evaluated. Great, no pressure." The royal palace was less a building than a living organism of crystal and light. Walls flowed like frozen waterfalls, floors resonated, with harmonic frequencies that matched their footsteps, and everywhere Marcus looked, he saw technology that blended seamlessly with art and nature. The throne room took his breath away. A vast chamber with a ceiling that seemed to open directly onto space. It centered around twin thrones, carved from what looked like crystallized time itself, matter that shifted between states of existence as he watched. Emperor Veltar awaited. Them, no longer just a quantum transmission but a physical presence that radiated power like a contained star. Beside him stood other members of the royal family, and Marcus could feel their curiosity, skepticism, and in some cases, barely concealed hostility. "My lords and ladies," the Emperor announced, his voice carrying harmonics that made the chamber's crystals sing in response. "I present Prince Consort Marcus, bonded mate of our beloved Queen Lyra." Marcus stepped forward, drawing on every diplomatic protocol he'd ever learned from trade negotiations. He bowed precisely, not too deep to show subservience, not too shallow to show disrespect. "Your Majesties, lords and ladies of the court, I am honored by your welcome." A younger male, whose crystalline formations were sharp and angular, stepped forward. "Prince Kale," Lyra whispered through their bond. "My cousin. Be careful." "Uncle," Kale said formally. "With respect, how can we accept a being who lives barely a century as mate to our queen? Lyra may rule for 10,000 years. Will this human be her companion for less than 1% of her reign?" The question, struck at Marcus's deepest fears. Through their bond, he felt Lyra's surge of protective anger, but also her own uncertainty. It was a fair point, and everyone in the chamber knew it. "Prince Kale raises an important concern," Marcus said carefully, "but I think he's operating on incomplete information." He turned to address the full court, drawing strength from his connection to Lyra. "You see a human and think of the limitations of my species, but I see something different. Through the Song of Souls, Lyra and I have become something new, not human, not Vex-High, but a bridge between our peoples." Marcus gestured to the crystalline technology surrounding them. "Your ancestors learned to blend consciousness with matter, to sing reality into new shapes. My species learned to adapt, to change, to find solutions where none seem to exist. Together we might discover possibilities neither of our peoples could achieve alone." "Pretty words," said another noble, an elderly female whose crystalline crown formations had grown into elaborate antler-like structures. "But what of the practical concerns? The Krex Syndicate has declared war on our empire. How does a human mechanic help us face that threat?" Marcus smiled, feeling more confident now that the conversation had turned to practical matters. "Lady, I'm sorry, I don't know your title." "High Admiral Zephyra, Commander of the Third Fleet." "High Admiral, with respect, I think you're asking the wrong question. Instead of asking how a human helps the Vex-High face the Krex, perhaps you should ask, how do the Vex-High and humans together create something the Krex have never encountered before?" He turned to Emperor Veltar. "Your Majesty, may I request access to your military tactical databases?" The Emperor's eyebrows, or the crystalline structures that served the same function, rose slightly. "An unusual request for your first day at court. I have some ideas about how our species might complement each other in warfare, but I'd need to see your current strategic doctrines to know if I'm right." Emperor Veltar studied him for a long moment, then nodded to High Admiral Zephyra. "Grant him access, Admiral. Let us see what the Song of Souls brought us." As the court began to disperse, Lyra took his hand. Through their bond, he felt her pride, her relief, and her love. "Well played, my prince," she whispered. "But now comes the real test. Can you actually deliver on those promises?" Marcus squeezed her luminescent fingers, feeling the harmony of their connection resonate through the living crystal around them. "I guess we're about to find out." 3 months later, Marcus stood on the bridge of the Harmonic Dawn, the first human Vex-High hybrid warship ever constructed. Around him, the combined fleet of 2 species prepared for the largest battle in galactic history. The Krex Syndicate had kept their promise. They'd returned with everything. Long-range sensors showed over 3,000 enemy vessels approaching. Through hyperspace, an armada large enough to sterilize worlds, but they weren't facing the same opponents they'd driven from the asteroid field. "All ships report ready," came the voice of Captain Riley, the human naval officer who'd volunteered for the Joint Command Program. "Hybrid crews are showing integration efficiency of 97%. Marcus smiled at that. The bonding process he and Lyra had pioneered wasn't limited to mates. It could create temporary tactical links between any willing human and Vex-High. The result was crews that functioned with unprecedented coordination, human adaptability merged with Vex-High harmonic precision. "Phase displacement generators online," reported Commander Thaley, a Vex-High who'd learned to swear in 17 human languages during the integration process. "Ready to begin the symphony." That was their nickname for Marcus's battle plan, the Symphony. Instead of traditional fleet engagements, they would fight like Vex-High sang in harmony, with each ship playing a specific part in a larger composition. "Enemy fleet dropping out of hyperspace," announced the sensor operator. "Holy stars, there are so many of them." The view screen filled with Krex vessels, angular, predatory ships that looked like they'd been designed by evolution rather than engineers. At their center was a massive dreadnought that dwarfed even the largest Vex-High battleships. "The Death Singer," Lyra said grimly through her bond with Marcus. "The Krex Syndicate's flagship. It's destroyed entire star systems." Marcus studied the tactical display, feeling the familiar calm that came when faced with an impossible mechanical problem. "Then I guess it's time to show them what happens when you threaten our family." The Krex commander's transmission filled the bridge with harsh, guttural language that the translators struggled to process. Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick. Continue this pathetic resistance, and we will hunt your species across the galaxy. Marcus opened a channel to the entire combined fleet, 300 human and Vex-High vessels, tiny compared to the enemy armada, but linked by bonds deeper than mere communication systems. All ships, this is Prince Consort Marcus. Today we don't fight as separate species or individual vessels. Today we fight as one voice, one will, one unstoppable force. He felt the bonds connecting every crew member across the fleet, human determination, flowing into Vex-High harmony. Begin the symphony. What followed redefined space combat. The combined fleet moved like a living thing, ships weaving between each other in patterns that seemed chaotic, but followed mathematical principles deeper than strategy. When Krek's vessels fired, they found their targets already gone, replaced by empty space or carefully positioned decoys. The human crews provided unpredictability, sudden maneuvers and tactical innovations that broke Krek's battle algorithms. The Vex-High provided coordination. Each ship linked to every other in a network of shared consciousness that allowed instant adaptation to changing conditions. Phase displacement complete, Thaler reported as half the fleet vanished from normal space, only to reappear inside the Krek's formation. Beginning inner harmony movement. Marcus watched with something approaching religious awe as the battle plan he'd conceived on paper became reality. Ships danced through three-dimensional space like notes in a cosmic symphony, each movement perfectly timed to complement every other. The Kreks, for all their numbers and firepower, couldn't adapt to an enemy that fought like music made manifest. Their rigid tactical doctrines crumbled against opponents who could literally share thoughts across light years of space. Death Singer is breaking formation, Riley reported. She's making a run for the planet. Lyra, Marcus said through their bond. Already moving, she replied, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated through every crystal on the bridge. The harmonic dawn intercepted the massive dreadnought just as it entered Lumina's atmosphere. The two ships faced each other over a world of crystal forests and singing cities, the future of galactic civilization hanging in the balance. You cannot stop us, the Krek's commander snarled over the comm. We are eternal. We are inevitable. Marcus and Lyra stood together at the ship's harmonic controls, their hands intertwined. Their consciousness merged not just with each other, but with every human and Vex-High in the fleet. No, they said in perfect unison, their combined voice carrying the power of two species united. You are the past. We are the future. The harmonic dawn sang. Every crystal in the ship's structure resonated with the combined will of human and Vex-High consciousness. The song spread outward, carried by quantum frequencies that touched every vessel in the fleet, every city on the planet below, every Vex-High across the Empire. But it didn't stop there. The song reached out across space itself, touching something Marcus had never imagined. Other species who had been waiting, watching, hoping for a sign that the galaxy's warlike nature could change. The ethereal collective, masters of energy manipulation. The Forgeborn, artificial intelligences seeking purpose beyond their creators' wars. The Star Whisperers, ancient beings who had retreated from galactic politics millennia ago. One by one, they added their voices to the symphony. The Death Singer fired everything it had. Plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, reality distortion weapons that could unmake matter itself. The beams struck the harmonic dawn and simply stopped, held in stasis by the combined will of dozens of species singing in perfect harmony. Impossible, the Krek's commander whispered. Improbable, Marcus corrected, but that's what makes it beautiful. The song crescendoed, and across the battlefield, something unprecedented happened. Krek's vessels simply stopped fighting, not destroyed, not disabled, convinced. The harmony was so pure, so overwhelming in its promise of something better than endless conflict, that even the galaxy's most aggressive species couldn't resist its call. The Death Singer's weapons powered down. Its commander's voice, when it came, was filled with something Marcus had never heard from a Krex before. Wonder. What? What are you offering us? Lyra stepped forward, her luminescence now bright enough to illuminate the entire bridge. Through their bond, Marcus felt her reaching out not just to the Krex commander, but to every being in the enemy fleet. "The same thing the song offered my mate," she said gently. "A chance to be part of something larger than yourself, a place in the symphony." The silence that followed lasted exactly 17 seconds. Marcus counted, his mechanic's mind still, functioning even in the midst of cosmic transformation. Then the Krex commander spoke again, his harsh voice carrying unfamiliar harmonics. We accept." What followed was the most complex negotiation in galactic history, conducted not through traditional diplomacy, but through shared consciousness. The Krex syndicate dissolved, its member species finding new purpose as guardians and explorers rather than conquerors. The Vex-High Empire transformed into something unprecedented, a true galactic community where dozens of species contributed their unique gifts to the growing symphony. And at the center of it all, a human mechanic and an alien queen whose love had become the catalyst for the galaxy's evolution. 5 years later, Marcus stood in the workshop he'd built beneath the royal palace on Lumina. It was a strange place, half human machine shop, half Vex-High crystal garden, where he worked on projects that bridged the gap between mechanical engineering and harmonic technology. "The new ships are performing beautifully," Lyra said, entering with their daughter balanced on her hip. Little Anna was a miracle, the first human Vex-High hybrid, her skin carrying a faint luminescence, while her eyes held depths that spoke of two species' combined heritage. "Daddy make ships sing?" Anna asked in the mixture of languages that served as her native tongue. "That's right, sweetheart," Marcus said, setting down his tools to embrace them both. Through his bond with Lyra, he felt the vast network of the galactic symphony, millions of beings across hundreds of worlds, all connected by the same harmonic frequencies that had first brought them together. "The temporal researchers want to meet with you again," Lyra said with amusement. "They're still trying to figure out how a simple distress call reached across space to find exactly the right person, at exactly the right moment." Marcus grinned, looking at his impossible family, his alien queen wife, their hybrid daughter who would grow up in a galaxy where such unions were not just accepted, but celebrated, and the future they'd built together from the wreckage of old. "Conflicts. Tell them I've got a theory," he said. "Sometimes the universe doesn't work the way we think it should. Sometimes it works the way it needs to." Anna giggled and reached out with tiny fingers that sparkled with inherited bioluminescence. And Marcus felt the Song of Souls humming in his bones, not just his connection to Lyra anymore, but to every being who had chosen harmony over discord, cooperation over conquest. He'd been just a mechanic, fixing broken things in the vast emptiness of space. Now he was part of something infinite, something beautiful, something that proved love could indeed conquer all, even the space between stars. The song continued, spreading outward through the galaxy, and Marcus knew it would never end. After. All the best machines were the ones that kept running long after their creators were gone, and this particular machine, this symphony of souls, was built to last forever. The end.